They say a journey begins in a single step, or in my case, one less piece of bread. My name is Chad, and I'm your test subject. I have sought out an expert in the field of nutrition and fitness who I hoped would help me feel, better. They call him the biohacker, but I call him Eric. I hope you'll join me on a path that leads you and I to optimal fitness as we live our lives in ketosis. This is the Life in Ketosis podcast, a biohacker's guide to optimal body performance. Hello everyone, my name is Chad, and this is my quest to achieving optimal body performance with the man that can get me there, the biohacker himself, Mr. Eric Bischoff. Every episode I'll be sharing my actual results, both successes and failures, as Eric teaches me how to apply the principles of ketogenics and functional movement to look and feel fantastic. Just as a reminder, the first 5 episodes are our foundational episodes. All of the details that we'll be talking about in this episode are built off of those foundational principles of ketogenics that are found in the first 5 episodes of this podcast. If you haven't listened to those, we encourage you to push pause on this one now, go back, get your foundation from those first 5 episodes, and then join us here. Because today we're talking about a very hot topic in the keto world. Today we're talking about the keto flu. Everybody wants to talk about the keto flu. Eric, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, Chad?
Good. You're not experiencing the keto flu, are you?
Nope. Been a long time since.
It's been a long time. Maybe we should have had somebody on that's just starting that could really speak from the present.
Yeah, somebody who really suffered keto flu. I have some biofitters that actually do. Did suffer some, but some people don't.
I haven't heard too many stories, but I will say mine was pretty rough.
Was it? Yeah.
Yes. I will definitely say mine was pretty rough. Mm-hmm. So I'll speak from experience, but one thing we're going to learn through the process of this conversation is that it seems everybody's experience is very different.
Yes.
When they experience the keto flu.
Yes.
So we'll talk a little bit about that, what those differences are, and how kind of how to deal with them. Mm-hmm. The most important thing that I want to get out of this is people having a really good understanding of what the keto flu is, especially if they haven't started ketosis yet. Mm-hmm. I want, and I know you as a coach, as a dietary coach, make sure people really understand what they might experience at the beginning of this ketogenic journey. And then I also want to make sure that people go away with a good understanding of what they can do about it.
You bet.
So it's important to know what it is and then what in the world can I do about it. So let's jump in. Let's start talking with science. I think that's probably where you want to go first. And I'm very interested in talking about the science behind the keto flu. When we talk about keto flu, what are we talking about?
Okay. Keto flu. What I do in my coaching, which I have done with quite a few, is it something that I discuss with them right away, because most people have heard of the keto flu, but a lot of them aren't really familiar with it. And so what I do, there's times I don't really talk about it very much because I'm one thinking that there's always a placebo effect on people, all right? So if I tell you you're going to have no cognitive, you're going to be dizzy, you're going to be nauseous, you're going to be irritable, and you're going to be tired and fatigued, sometimes people think that all of a sudden I'm giving up something, so I should feel that kind of symptoms, okay? So I'm not, and I've done it with different biofitters that I don't want them to project this is what I'm going to feel, all right? So I've had actually ones go right in. I don't even talk about the keto flu. I start them right out the gate, keto, okay? I'm not, the carbs are down, the protein's minimum, and the fats. It's keto, okay? And it's amazing. I communicate with them every day, and I'm not getting, I'm so sick. I can't function, and all the symptoms. Okay. So that's the first thing I do. I kind of weigh it over on who I do that with. Okay. I'm not trying to hide something from them, but I need to let them, I do let them know that there might be they're going to experience something, just in case. Okay. Because sometimes I think it's placebo.
Yeah. So you mentioned some symptoms.
Yes.
So let's talk, before we get into symptoms, let's talk about what's happening in our body.
Got it.
When we decide to go on a ketogenic diet.
So I put the mental thing out there, okay?
Yeah.
Now we're going to go on the physiological side.
Yes.
Okay. So what's happening is
Because let me be clear,
Yeah.
you started by talking about placebo, but
Yeah.
the keto flu is not necessarily a placebo
No,
effect.
no.
There
Oh,
is
no.
something
No, it's
happening
real.
in our body.
It's real
Okay,
happy.
okay.
I'm just trying to alleviate you thinking those
Yeah, that you
symptoms.
have to experience
Yeah, have to
this.
experience that. Now saying, I'm really tired, but you're really
Yeah.
not. Okay. All right. So a lot of it starts in physiological. So what's happening, most everyone has to make a change in what we call the energy substrate. All right. So most people, you're breaking up with your a relationship, a girlfriend, a lover, whatever, because that food has become something now you have to break up with, okay? And most people like their carbs. We're talking carbs now, all right? And some people who are obese and have really abused their carbohydrate intake, okay, really have a tough time, and that's mental too, trying to break that psychological feel for it, and then now it's physiological, that need. All right, so that's the problem. What happens now? You're changing your energy, you're getting rid of carbohydrates, all right? So your body, everyone's going to react differently because now you've taken the glucose way down, and you're used to having that glucose way up.
Yeah.
So what's happening? As soon as you bring down that glucose, and we've talked about it, the insulin's going to drop, all right? So what do you have to do? You have to say, your body's saying, hey, well, how are you going to fuel me now, all right? So we have to say, all right, fatty acids have to come into play. Insulin down, releases the fatty acids, come on into the bloodstream, all right? But remember, the keto flu, the biggest issue you're going to have at the beginning is your brain cannot burn fatty acids. It will not cross the blood-brain barrier. So now your brain's saying, hey, where's my glucose, all right? And that's it's cognitive.
Confused.
Yeah, it's confused. Oh,
Yeah.
Obviously. And it can't bring in those fat. But your muscles, if you've been fat adapted, if you've been a big carb person, and your body composition shows that, then guess what? Those fatty acids aren't even efficient to be a fuel to your muscles and your heart and all of your organs. It'll go there, but that's when the fatigue sets in because it's saying, hey, now you're just calling on me right now to deliver all these fatty acids to your mitochondria and say, hey, burn me. But where have you been? Okay?
Yeah.
You've been feeding it glucose all this time. And so your mitochondria is saying, hey, I'm pushing out. I need some energy, substrates, but you're not fat adapted yet.
Yeah.
And like there's some people, we all adapt differently. That's why keto flu isn't for everybody. Since I was vegan, right? Mm-hmm. I dropped right into keto the very next day, not one symptom at all. Why? Because being vegan, I'm low glucose already.
Yeah.
My body's already adapted to burning fat. So just the liver said, hey, I got a bunch coming in here, acetyl-CoA, let me pop it out as ketones. So it went really efficiently.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, so great. So what I'm hearing, and you can kind of help me
Yeah.
think through this, but a simple way for me to think about
bet.
this is it's quite literally like a glucose or carbohydrate withdrawal.
Exactly.
I mean,
big time.
you've been feeding your body this substance,
And your
right?
brain, especially.
You think about a drug abuser or user or addict, right? The minute they start giving, they stop giving their body that thing that it's gotten used to, whether it's good for them or not.
Right.
And obviously, in drug use cases, it's not.
Right.
But the body has adapted and said, we need that to function. We've learned how to function on that. Now you're not giving it to us.
Yep.
Like, what are we supposed to do now?
Exactly.
And
And your
so-
brain's been calling out for that glucose 25% of it every day.
Yeah.
And now you just say, brain, I'm shutting you down for a while.
Yeah.
So guess what's going to happen?
And to me, this shows me, this is just yet another piece of evidence to me that the human body is incredible.
Yes.
And so adaptive. And so it is geared for survival and performance,
Yes.
right? And so whatever you're giving it, good or bad, it's going to try to find a way to function on that and survive on that. And it's just incredible to me that, it wasn't even until, mid-century or even later that we started feeding our body all of these carbs and this glucose and these refined sugars and blah, 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 blah. But yet we've so quickly adapted to surviving on that, right?
And that's our mechanism.
Yeah.
And think about it. Can you call carbohydrates a survival fuel? No, because remember, 100 grams in your liver, 400 to 500 in your muscle glycogen, all right? So what's that, 2,000 calories? That's not going to last you very long. So it says, hey, you got a day's worth, maybe day and a half. If you have no other energy substrate, you're dead. Okay?
Yeah.
So,
well, it's eventually going to catch up with you, right?
Exactly.
Just like any other substance that you're putting in your body, and your body starts to try to survive on it, but if it's not sufficient and natural, it's going to catch up with you.
You bet.
And that's exactly what happens with type 2 diabetes.
Yes.
All of this carb and glucose consumption catches up with you, and your body is like, whoa, I'm not going to produce insulin any longer because this is not working for me.
Insulin resistance.
Yeah.
Oh, look at you, Chad. You are learning. I'm going to let you just take over. Awesome.
Yeah. So it's so interesting to see. And why wouldn't you go through a phase of adaptation?
Just reverse it.
Yeah.
If that's what got you into that metabolic syndrome, all that excess glucose and carbohydrates and obesity and type 2 diabetic or pre-diabetic, okay, that's what caused it, all right? Let me reverse that nutrition and take that out, and let's reverse it. It's really just common sense.
Yeah.
And that's the big part of it. It's glucose control, insulin resistance, insulin control is all. That's what it's about.
So that's great. So there's a good basis of science as to why our body goes through or could go through this, and it really depends on how glucose-based we're functioning at the time we decide to go keto, right?
And I know on all those I coach, I say, okay, I know what you were, what your habits were, what your consumption was. He's not placebo. This is going to be real, okay?
Yep.
And then others that I've taken that are, where I know they've been low glucose and carbohydrate based, and you're pretty efficient at taking fatty acids. Now we're just going to convert them more to ketones, okay? And they roll right into it. And there is some genetic SNPs that I've looked at people that actually say, all right, genetically you are not a real carbohydrate tolerant person, okay? So you're going to have insulin resistance, you're going to have this and this. So I can look at the SNPs and say, this person should just roll right into a keto lifestyle. Yeah. And we all roll into, not everybody, okay? This isn't one size fits all. There is some genetically where it's just going to not be really effective for them. That's their FTO SNPs and PPAR SNPs and those kind of fat metabolism SNPs. Those are those mutations, those variants that we've talked about.
Yeah. So that's great. That's a great science base. Let's move into symptoms. And this is where I can speak from experience, and I'll talk a little bit about my experience with the Keto Flu. It was about a week in, just under a week in, that I experienced the Keto Flu. I started on a Monday, and I woke up on a Saturday morning, and I felt hungover. I really did.
I remember talking.
I felt like crap. I felt like I was on the verge of vomiting. I felt my brain was super foggy. I was lethargic. I didn't want to eat. All I wanted to do was just lay on the couch, and I did. Like I could not function. Right. And I'm not a sickly person. I don't get sick very often, and so it's a rare thing for me to feel like I'm just kind of.
And what day was that? That was day.
That was Tuesday, 3? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That was day 5.
And how many? I gave you some pretty intense workouts to start you off. Okay, you remember that?
Yeah.
And so what happened? And I was worried that I didn't know how fast you're going to roll into it. Okay, so obviously when you do not eat any more carbs, glucose, right? Yep. Your body says, all right, I got stored glycogen in my liver, I got stored in my muscle. All right, I'm going to get this glycogen out of my liver because your brain needs glucose. It's not adapted to ketones yet. So you're losing that glycogen out of the liver, okay? Then I put you through some intense workouts to test you out, remember? So then your muscle said, I got to eat up this glycogen to give you energy, all right? So your muscle glycogen is basically depleting, all right? Now your liver glycogen's depleting, and you're not adapted to fatty acids. Your muscle got some of those when you worked out, fatty acids, and your heart and your tissues, but they're not really adapted. They're going to use fatty acids, but your brain can't. So I basically put you in a real glycogen deficit. to force those fatty acids to the liver to say, hey, we've got to make some ketones here.
Yeah.
But it just didn't quite catch up with you. So you got to be that's why on some, I have them walk, when they start the keto, because that initiates a little more fatty acid burning in the mitochondria. It'll release some out of the adipose tissue and get to the liver to start making ketones. So you don't want that higher intensity, because when you go higher, it takes away from the beta oxidation, which is your fatty acids.
Yeah,
okay.
Especially if you're in an obese situation, right? If
Yes.
you're going into a ketogenic diet with and you're obese,
Right.
which I wasn't. Luckily, I was coming into it more from a fit perspective, but wanting a more efficient fuel and
Exactly.
clarity and all of that kind of stuff, which I've talked a lot about on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're obese and you're coming into it from that, you're going.
Yeah.
Your likelihood of experiencing the keto flu is a lot stronger. And
Yes.
so easing into it through walking and exercising those muscles and making that transition from glycogen to fat
Exactly.
is a lot more of a smoother transition.
Because you've been operating, if you're obese, you're probably basically insulin resistant, okay?
Yeah.
So you have a lot of glucose been floating around in your blood, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You've been feeding a lot of your mitochondria and all your cells through constant glucose, through carbohydrate eating, okay? And you've converted most of that to fat. That's why if you're obese, that's what happened. Your liver took and said, hey, I can't get rid of this. Let's convert it to a triglyceride and store it. So it's stored energy, okay? Now we're just changing your energy substrate. And it takes a little bit to get there.
Yeah. So what are some of the symptoms what are some of the most common symptoms that people experience when they experience the keto flu?
First is most people crave sugar, okay?
Yeah.
Because, you have a little increase of cortisol, okay? And the cortisol is going to say, hey, liver, man, there's nothing coming in on the outside, so let's get rid of this, what you got stored as a backup for the brain. Sooner or later, the glycogen shoves that. Cortisol will push that, say, hey, glycogen, glucose, get to the brain. You're going to run out of that because the brain wants 20, 25%. And so that's going to go quick. So what happens, you're going to crave the brain saying, hey, you've been feeding me glucose. The cravings are going to come hardcore because it's saying it wants to stay alive. It's going to give you, the hormones. We're going to get into leptin and ghrelin and CCK and all that stuff to say, hey, I need something, okay?
Yep.
And dizziness is what you...
Yeah.
Man, and cognitive,
Foggy.
and foggy.
Yep.
There's stomach pains. Nauseousness. And so those things are, and a lot of it. Now we're getting into where you're dumping fluids. Okay.
Yep.
So, and I stress that to everyone about sodium and their electrolytes. What happens when your insulin drops? Okay. Before your insulin's up there high, it's saying, hey, let's keep some sodium. Let's keep these. Let's keep the fluid. All right. But when it drops, it says, hey, let's start. I got to start dumping. Okay. So it'll dump water and it'll dump sodium. And so, and everybody experiences that first body weight loss. 4 pounds. I've 10, 12 pounds.
Yeah.
And what happens,
it's
fluid, but it's not all just coming, they're saying, oh, your glycogen, since you are depleting that, right? Remember, it's about a 4-to-1 ratio. So if you have 1 gram of glycogen, okay, we have up to 400 to 500 in our body, and that's 1 gram. So you usually store 3 to 4 grams of water with each one of those grams. So if that comes out to about, that's about 17 ounces of stored glycogen, okay? So that's almost a pound. That's a little over a pound, right?
Yeah.
But you times that by, 3 to 4 grams of water, so you can maybe lose 4 pounds of that. But you're not going to lose all your glycogen. But so the rest is coming from your muscle tissue, dehydration because you're not drinking enough fluids to replace it, and your sodium and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So there is issues coming from water, dehydration basically.
Yeah. So what's the most common onset and duration of the keto flu that you've found?
The most common is cognitive.
I'm sorry. I mean time frame.
Oh, time frame. Okay.
So we talked about mine. Mine was 5 days
Yes.
after I stopped eating carbs
The-
or low carbs. What's the most common onset time that you've...
The longest that I'm coaching daily on this, to where somebody says, oh, I can't, basically get to a point where I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
They want to throw in the towel.
Uh-huh.
And I'm saying, in 12 to 14 days is probably my longest. And there's people that I've read and I've coached a lot of people, and a month down the road, they're still suffering, and it can happen.
Oh, really?
Because metabolically, we're all different, all right? And so if I can't get their ketone level up, obviously acetylacetate and then to beta-hydroxybutyrate molecule, then they're not getting that beta to the brain. Okay, so they're still a little cognitive. Okay?
Wow, that's so interesting. So let me clarify.
Yeah.
So for me, my onset was after 5 days.
Right.
So I didn't experience it for 5 days. It just my onset was after 5 days. Then I experienced the duration was only the 12 hours that I was awake that day, or 12 hours.
And
I was awake for longer than 12 hours. 16 to 18 hours that I was awake that day. And then I woke up the next day feeling like $1,000,000.
See, you had delayed onset, okay? And I think it was due to the pretty high intense workouts where your glycogen just couldn't, and you're probably making, obviously some ketones, and so that glycerol backbone to the triglyceride that's being converted to a ketone gave you some glucose.
Yeah.
But when we kept pushing the envelope as far as your workouts, high intensity, your liver said, hey, I can't keep up with this.
Yeah.
And your muscle started losing it until you finally can restore some of that glycogen.
So the 5 days is long.
Yeah.
What did most people experience? When's onset for most people?
Day one.
Really?
Day one.
After 24 hours of no carbs, they get onset.
Because their body is so adapted to that 2-hour feeding of glucose.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and the brain,
2-hour cycle.
The brain just says, hey, I'm short here. What's going on? You know, and then it's going to say, hey, send in cortisol. Say, hey, cortisol, let's make something out of an amino acid real quick. Give me some, gluconeogenesis, and give me something. And you have some fat going in there, but some people just aren't efficient at first with the fatty acid. So usually, day one.
Wow.
But normally 2-3 days, man, most of them are popping.
So pretty common duration is 2 to 3 days.
Yeah, on a lot of my coaching, 2 to 3 days, and they start feeling better.
But potential of 30 plus.
Yeah, I've read I haven't experienced any of mine, but I've read the 4 to 6 weeks in there in keto, and then I would obviously think there's a genetic issue that we're dealing with here, because your body's basically going to clear you drop that insulin, those fatty acids are coming, and your liver is not going to be that slow to produce ketones. So there's a genetic issue. The fat, if we have a fat issue as far as intake of, certain fats, could be preventing that. So I would go genetic on people.
Wow, I could see wanting to throw in the towel if the duration was much longer than 2 days.
I will stand with that. Nauseousness is the worst. When it comes to the flu like that kind, I am a baby. I hate that kind of feeling in my stomach. No one likes it.
No.
But there's people that are tough about it,
Yeah, and I would say, that's if you're experiencing the duration of that like that for 30 days. If you're experiencing a 30-day duration of keto flu, you need to be consulting with somebody who can interpret your SNPs, your genetic SNPs. You should be have your full biomarkers tested, all of that kind of stuff.
Because they have a thyroid issue too. Because when you first go into keto, you're gonna raise your cortisol a little bit. Okay, your T3 will drop. Okay, and so there's your energy output. Okay, until you get adapted. All right, so they could be hypothyroid before, in which I would know. Okay, and then that's something we'd watch out for. So there is a lot of issues that you've got to start looking at, especially the adrenals. If they're not popping and not getting that energy level back, and they're not feeling good, then we start looking at biomarkers.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah. Okay, so let's give some people some tools. That's obviously really, really important. We've talked about what they can experience, what they can expect.
You bet.
What are some tools that people can use to deal with the keto flu?
Drink. Okay.
And not alcohol.
Not alcohol. No, that's even worse. That's diuretic.
Stay drunk for 2 days, and you won't even.
You bet. Even those there's some that stay on Diet Coke and different things, and caffeine, it's also can act as a diuretic and get rid of fluid. So you got to be careful in the beginning. Okay.
Yeah.
But always drink. Get your fluids in. The standard out there, most people, adults, is 2 to 3 liters a day. Some people say increase it more. I've never been a big drinker. I don't even get that in my body. I'm adapted to what I drink is just plenty for me, even in training and everything else. So everybody's different that way. We're not all machines and say, hey, you require this much fluid, but you need to drink because you're you can lose 10 pounds, okay, and that's water weight, okay, obviously, and get obviously your electrolytes, sodium, potassium, and magnesium. A little bit of calcium. So and when I coach, I tell people, let's bring up these because you're losing these electrolytes.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the best delivery system for those electrolytes? Because I think too, a lot of people are drinking these sports drinks that have a lot of crap in them, along with the added benefit of the electrolytes. So what?
You bet. Yeah, you're right. And bone broth. There's another, but. Not all bone broth is created equal. You know, we have a type 1, type 2, type 3 collagen factor, which in the bone broth is from chicken or is from fish or from beef. Mm-hmm. So there's different factors there with different minerals, all right? Some bone broths are not really mineral loaded, all right? So, obviously you're going for glycerine and proline, and so some of the things that are the amino acids that are important in bone broth, okay? Mm-hmm. But sometimes there's people that say, hey, I can get more from supplements, okay, than spending hours and hours in making bone broth, okay? I've been down that path. It's a lot of work, but you really don't know exactly how much aminos you're getting, what ratio of aminos. You're going to get 19 aminos from both bone broth. Glycerin and proline is your most important, obviously, but I won't go into that. But good supplements, your potassium subs, I take them and I recommend, just supplements, different brands, get your magnesium in, your potassium, your sodium. I do chicken broth. It's powdered broth. You get 800 milligrams. It's cheap, and I always recommend a chicken broth, and then put glycerine in it. Or I won't get into that, but there's a lot of things you can add to it to get you through those symptoms. All right, the cramps. I mean, did you get any cramping?
I didn't get any cramping. No.
Oh, that's one big one. Yeah. A lot of people, and everybody's like, sodium. I'm like, no, you need magnesium to release the calcium out of that muscle cell, push it back out, because calcium is what constricts it. All right, you need something. You want to release that constriction.
What's your delivery mode of magnesium of choice? What's your
citrate? There's different ones out there you can try. I have different brands that I recommend to people, and even on sodium. Himalayan salts, there's really not much minerals in those. They tout it as, but you do still need some iodine from like table salt. I won't go into that, but there's a lot of things on that you should pay attention to. Okay. And so those three, like I said, citrate it works. Magnesium citrate is good. Okay. Yeah, that's probably what I'd recommend for most people. Yeah.
So sodium, magnesium, water.
And potassium.
You
bet. And then low calcium, but those are things you watch out for.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What about, where are you getting your potassium?
I just get it at Amazon, and I take...
So just a sup?
Yeah, just a sup. And you can start out, there's people who go up to, 3,500 milligrams if they have a lot of issues. Keep it around there. 400 on potassium is what I recommend.
Because bananas are high glycemic.
But avocados.
Avocado.
There you go, your potassium right there. And that's...
I didn't know avocados were potassium rich.
Huge. Oh, yeah, really good.
Awesome.
Yeah. And bananas, it's
too
sugar.
High.
It's candy.
It is. It really is.
It tastes good, though.
They do. They taste delicious.
But I'm not against bone broth. Don't anybody get me wrong. It's just be careful. When you make it, you got some veggies you put in there, which is great. For phytonutrients. But it's really hard to pinpoint exactly what your aminos are and your minerals that you're getting out of it. That's all. Yeah. And plus, it tastes good, I think. So.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I just want to I want to end this conversation by giving some people some real hope.
Oh, MCT oil. Sorry, real quick. Just to help you, some people, if they're not adapting really well, then I'll say, go ahead and get started on your MCT oil, which will give you a little boost of ketones, okay? Which will give you a little boost of energy because, remember, that goes portal vein straight to the liver, straight to ketones. It doesn't have to be emulsified or anything. So that's going straight to your mitochondria. Yeah. Your brain loves it. Your muscles love it. So work in your MCT. I don't do the exogenous ketones on most people, but if you're really struggling after a few weeks, then I'd bring you in on exogenous ketones to try to make it easier for you.
Supplement that a little bit, get that system jogging.
Yeah, just get it going. Yeah. Yep, it's a good catalyst.
That's great. That's great. So I just want to end this conversation or wrap up this conversation with some hope for people.
Yes.
So, but before I do that, is there anything else that you want to make sure people understand about the keto flu, its symptoms, or science, or treating it?
Time.
Yeah.
It'll go away in time. Don't give up. Just bear through it. If you're really getting some good keto symptoms, and I've worked with a few that are just like, I'm staying in bed today, you know, and I feel bad. Usually I like to, if people are going to have an issue, they start on a Friday sometimes, because then you got the weekend to try to get through it if you're going to experience, the keto flu. But
that's great advice. I mean, it wouldn't have worked for me. Actually, mine worked out perfect because it took me 5 days to get it. But that's great advice to kind of plan your starting. I know a lot of people want to start on a Monday. I don't know what it is about Monday.
And I made that mistake. Like, hey, you want to start on Monday? Thinking it's like the start of the week. And I'm like,
start of a new week.
Yeah, great. They're going to go to work not feeling so good,
They're going to hate me then.
I know. They're like, I don't feel so good.
Cursing Eric's name all day long.
I know.
Okay, great. Well, that's fantastic. The hope I want to give people is, and I already briefly mentioned it, is that the day after, that Sunday morning, I experienced a clarity and a energy that I have never experienced before in my life, that I remember.
And you meditate.
I do,
and
yes.
You're cognitive of your mental alertness.
Yeah.
I mean, you pay attention to
Oh,
that.
absolutely.
That's what I'm saying.
Absolutely, and I journal it.
Yeah.
And this was just something that, it's almost like I wish, because that clarity became the regular, I almost wish I could experience that again. You know what I mean? Going back, and maybe that's not a good thing. It's a little addictive, but and that's the self-testing that I've been doing for the last couple of weeks.
There is one way you can.
Yeah, let's hear it.
On your 4th day of your 5-day fast, that's what I experienced.
Oh, okay.
No, it was the highest cognitive I have ever felt.
I thought you were going to tell me methamphetamines, but...
Well, yeah, that
I'm just kidding.
Don't
do drugs, kids.
A self-experiment there. Adderall versus beta-hydroxybutyrate molecule on the 4th day of a fast. No, I was like...
Yeah, I've got to do a long-term fast.
Even the 5th day, the cognitive. And some people fast different. I mean, but it was like... Wow, this is amazing. It's to the point where, did someone put something in my drink? Yeah. I mean, I was just so cognitive and just didn't want to go to bed. I was just on fire.
That's awesome.
And that felt really, it's almost like a runner's high, if you've ever had that. I've only had it twice, and all the racing and training, I've had it twice, and I'm like, wow, I could float, basically. It's pretty neat.
So, don't give up. That's my message.
Perfect.
That is my message. Like you said, Eric, time is your friend.
Yep.
Just
bear through it.
Be with the process. Because when you come out on the other side, it will be incredible. And I've heard it over and over again from your biofitters, from people, friends that I know. I mean, I love nothing more than I've helped probably 4 or 5 of my close friends get on ketogenic, and it's a couple of days to a week of, dude, this sucks. If this doesn't get better, I'm out. This is horrible. I feel like beep, 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 beep. What are you doing? And then I get that text that's like, dude, this is incredible.
I know.
And that is so awesome.
Yep.
So hold on. Time is your friend, and love it when you get on the other side. Just enjoy it.
You bet.
Be present in that moment, and it'll be awesome. So,
awesome.
Anyway, thanks so much for biohacking with us today, Eric.
No, thanks.
And I want to thank you for joining us on this quest for optimal fitness. If you are ready to begin your own journey and live your life in ketosis, be sure to check out biofitcoaching.com or Biofit Coaching on Facebook. And as a reminder, if we've benefited you anyway, if you like this podcast, please consider going on iTunes and leaving us a review and a 5-star rating. It really helps us get the word out. It helps legitimize the podcast. We'd love for more people to hear these things. And ultimately, if this has helped you in any way, the greatest compliment that you can give us is sharing the podcast with your friends and family, the ones that you love the most that need this information. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, stay keto.